Welcome to Living Well with Cancer. My name is Bert Scholl. This webinar is brought to you by the Cancer Resource Center of the Finger Lakes and the Cayuga Cancer Center. Tonight's webinar is called Peace of Mind Binder. It is brought to you by Hospicare. Thank you for joining us. Yeah. So welcome everyone. And Kimmy, I'm going to hand it to you.
All set. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So my name is Kimmy Jones, and I'm the clinical outreach nurse for Hospicare. And tonight I'm going to be taking you through a virtual workshop on how to prepare a peace of mind binder. Sometimes people call it a peace of mind binder. Sometimes we call it the just in case binder. Some people call it the grab and go binder. And I'll talk more about that. And also, it doesn't actually have to be a binder, but that's just the term that we use because that's how most people end up organizing their documents. So I'm going to make sure that I share my screen. Oh, I think you have to give me the permission to share my screen.
Will do.
Good. And you
should be good now.
Let's see. Yep, great. Okay, so Hospicare, the agency that I work for, is the hospice service provider for Tompkins County and for Cortland County. And anytime I have a captive audience, I always do a quick little plug and spiel about hospice services because I want people to learn about hospice services way before they might ever need them, because that's actually the time to learn about it. So I'm so sorry, but you're going to get a couple minutes of hospice information here. So hospice is a Medicare benefit. It is covered by other insurances if people don't have Medicare, but Medicare is the main way that hospice across the nation has the ability to provide the service. And so Medicare tells us very particular criteria that people need to meet to even be able to qualify for hospice services. And that's for us to worry about, and we have that built into our assessment process. But hospice in and of itself is specialized. It's meant for people who are considered end of life, which according to Medicare, who tells us the rules, that means that a person has a prognosis of 6 months or less to live, and they require 2 doctors to both agree that a person has 6 months or less to live. And so typically that's our hospice medical director, Dr. Yander, if anybody knows her, and then your own primary care doctor. So you don't have to go out and find a second doctor. Again, it's built into the way that we do our assessments. So if somebody does have a 6-month prognosis or less, and they are choosing to forego any kind of curative or life-extending treatment, and they consent to hospice services, so those are kind of the 3 big qualifiers: terminal prognosis, no life-extending or aggressive treatment, and then the person consents, because hospice is a voluntary program. We never force somebody onto hospice. I have been known to try to talk people into it if I think it's going to be good for them, but it is voluntary, so nobody's ever forced onto hospice. But if somebody meets all 3 of those criteria, then I know in my heart that that person will come to the end of their life. And hospice, the philosophy of hospice is that we don't try to stop that from happening. We allow people to come to the end of their life. We don't try to stop death, but we also don't try to hasten death. Some people think that hospice tries to make you die on purpose, and that's not what we do. And if we ever did, I would be in jail. I wouldn't have a nursing license. But it's not an uncommon misconception that people have. But what we do is we allow people to come to the end of their life in whatever time span that's going to happen. We don't intervene on the time, but we try to make every day as good as it can be during that time. And we do that through having this very holistic team of people that come together to support a person who's on hospice and support their loved ones. So we focus a lot on controlling distressing symptoms, which could be physical symptoms like pain or nausea or trouble breathing. But also we want to make sure that we're addressing psychosocial needs. So we have social workers that are part of the team, spiritual needs. If somebody needs that, we have spiritual coordinators. We used to call them chaplains, but now we call them spiritual coordinators. And home health aides, volunteers. There's many people that come together to support a person who's on hospice and support their loved ones. So that's my little hospice spiel. And in order to get an assessment for hospice, you don't have to wait for your doctor to bring it up. People can call us directly and ask questions or say, "Oh, I think my mom or dad or my partner might be ready for hospice. I'm not really sure." And we'll take it from there. We'll ask you a few questions and we can take it from there. So that's just for you to know and remember. But tonight, I'm not signing anybody on to hospice. I just wanted to plug that in there since I had the opportunity. We also have a very robust bereavement and grief program at Hospicare that a lot of people in the community have used in some way or form. So when a person dies on hospice services, their loved ones, it doesn't have to be blood family, their loved ones, whatever they define as their loved ones, are can utilize our bereavement services. So we have one-on-one grief counseling. We have support groups that are in person and also virtually. We have sometimes there's interesting workshops or specialized educational seminars available. We have information for children and teenagers because they grieve just as much as adults grieve. And then we have 3 big community memorials every year. There's Illuminations in the summer, which is actually coming up next month in June. And then we have a memorial in the fall and one in the winter around the holiday time. So that's part of our nonprofit status, that we have all of this big bereavement and grief support for the community, because that's important to us as well as the community. Hi, welcome. Okay, so now let's talk about the preparation binder, which is what you thought you signed up for, right? For coming to this. So how to make a preparation binder a gift to your loved ones. So what is a preparation binder? And again, I said we sometimes call it a preparation binder, sometimes it's a grab and go binder or just in case binder. They all mean the same thing. But it is a place where you gather important information or documents that would be helpful for you to have quick access to, or your loved ones, in the event that you are too sick to be able to provide that information, or in the event that you have died. And then we're going to break it down. We have different sections that we recommend you think about for your binder. And we'll break it down section by section. And also, Bert has a document that can be provided to you via email, and you're welcome to print it out and use it. It's just a tool, and it's a big checklist. And we tried to write down every single thing we could think of in this checklist that you might want to think about having in your binder. So that's available for you, and you don't have to fill it out right here and right now. It's not homework. It's just a tool for you to use, and you'll get that from Bert.
I just sent it in the chat, actually. And
Is that what I saw come through? Okay.
I'm happy to email the document to anyone. Just have to just message me or ask me at the end, and I'll happily make that work for you.
Great. Thank you. So let's talk about why we would want to even make a binder in the first place. And we've got some little prompts here. Some of them get very flowery and wordy here, but the first one says, the preparation binder is a gift to our loved ones. It reduces the stress for our families when they might have to make decisions on our behalf. It provides a concrete plan for our family and loved ones to follow. This third bullet point down says, offers the opportunity for family and friends to provide a loving presence at your bedside and emotional support for one another. This, I think, is really important, because sometimes I've seen loved ones who are trying to care for a sick or dying family member, and they're running around and they're trying to make an appointment with the lawyer, and they've got to go and find, see if you can dig up the birth certificate and see if you can find this and that. And so instead of being able to sit vigil at the bedside of their loved one or care for their loved one, they're out running around trying to find all this paperwork. And so that can be really helpful. If we know where all of this important information is, then your family and loved ones can be with you in the true sense. It's a gift to ourselves. It's a chance for us to review our lives, make changes, make decisions. Provides an opportunity for us to have difficult conversations with our family. So we're here learning about how to make a preparation binder, which is great. But sometimes when our loved ones hear about us talking about our end of life wishes, or thinking about our preferences for end of life or death, or if we're very ill, that's really uncomfortable for some of our family members to think about or even talk about. And when you're working on this binder, you can kind of use that as an excuse to open up the conversation if you need to. And it provides an opportunity for a family to become closer. And we'll talk more about that as we move forward through the slides. Okay, so every person's binder is going to be a little bit different just based on who you are and what has happened to you in your life and what kind of assets you have and what kind of feelings you have. So these are some exploration questions just for each person to think about for themselves. And the first one says, how do you imagine your end of life experience? And that's going to be different for every person. The next one over to the right with the little finger pointing says, what medical or life-sustaining care do you want? And I would add a little extra sentence that says, and what kind of care do you not want? Because that is your right in the United States, is to choose if there's things that you do want and also to forego things that you don't want. The next bullet point on the bottom left, who are the loved ones, the friends and family, who would be most impacted by your illness or death? And then lastly, what do you want your legacy to be? And again, these are all going to be different answers for all of us. I've heard some people say that they want to leave behind. You know, I worked with a person who was on hospice, and they really wanted to make those little libraries that are out when you're walking around, and it's like a little door. And it was beautiful. I watched this person work from their hospice bed online, figuring out who was going to build this and then how they were going to get it filled. And one day I ran across it and saw their name. And I said, oh my gosh, I was there when they were working on this. How beautiful. So that was a really important legacy for that person. I've also worked with people who say, I want to get on my tractor and drive off and you'll never see me again. I'm going to drive into the woods and you'll never find me. So it's just going to be different for each person. Okay, so for those of you who are listening who are my type A personalities, who might already be starting to feel a little anxious and starting to feel, okay, I need to get this and this and this and start working on it. We don't want you to feel anxious. When you look at the checklist that Bert can send to you, it can seem daunting because we just tried to think of every single thing we could and put it on the checklist. And you don't have to go through and check every single box. We want you to work on this perpetually. Ideally, this would be something that you start and you work on. And it says, set realistic goals is the first bullet point there. So what we say is try to do 3 things each week towards your preparation binder. And so that might be find a binder, number 1, and then find a copy of your birth certificate, number 2, and find your healthcare proxy paperwork or fill it out, number 3. Okay, so find the resources that work for you. We'll talk more about that in a future slide. And it should not feel like a daunting chore. We want this to be hopefully somewhat enjoyable. There's some parts of it that are kind of boring and you just get it over with, but in general, we don't want this to feel like a task that you have to complete, because it can get daunting if you really let it, which I know my type A's will let it get daunting. Okay, the paper trail. So this is all the things that are in the checklist that you are welcome to use at your leisure. You're also welcome to make copies of it if you'd like. But so don't worry if you miss some of the things I talk about here. Medical documents, I'll break that down further. Financial documents, insurance policies, investments, safe deposit box keys. Well, I'm going to put a little star by that one. We're going to talk about safety deposit box. Government and identity paperwork, cards, passports, billing information for monthly bills or utilities, cell phones, real estate information if you own property or own buildings, vehicle information, and then internet information. This is one some of us don't think about. So do you have email accounts? Do you have a Facebook account? Do you have different internet accounts that it would be helpful for people to know your login and password, or have a way to find your login and password if they need to? And then important phone numbers for family members, loved ones, your lawyer, your doctor, financial planner, pastor or priest, and your preferred funeral home. We're going to talk all about final wishes in a slide eventually. So the important phone numbers is interesting because I've given this presentation a few times, and there was a person in the audience who at the end she raised her hand and she said, "Oh, it's so interesting that you said, remember to add important phone numbers," because she said, "I have a great friend who lives in Ireland. And I talk to this friend a few times a year, and my family would not know how to contact her in Ireland unless I put down that person's name and phone number and email." So just little things like that. And we'll talk more about it. And again, it's on your checklist. So don't worry if you don't remember all of this. I know it's kind of a lot. Okay, so we're going to start with talking about medical documents. So some of the medical documents that are ideal for you to have in your preparation binder in some form would be your health insurance policies, because they always want to know your health insurance and then your number, your policy number if you have it. A list of your physicians. So most of us have a primary care physician, so you would want that person's name in your binder, but a lot of us also see a specialist or multiple specialists. So include your specialists' doctors' names and contact information as well. And for the most part these days, as long as we have somebody's name, we can find their contact information easily. But if you have it, you can include it, but at least their name. A list of your, what's happening? A list of your health diagnoses. So that is like, what is it, what that's wrong with you, so to speak. So what kind of things do you see a doctor for, or do you take medication for? So this would be like high blood pressure or diabetes or eczema, different things like that. A list of your allergies. So you might notice that we're starting to talk about all those questions that they ask you every single time you go to the doctor or the hospital. And this is why we say include it in your binder, because you might know those answers. And a lot of times it's in the documentation at your doctor's office. But in case your family needs to speak on your behalf, it's helpful for them to have it available to them as well.
Can you maximize that screen for us?
Yeah, let's see what I did. I don't know why my screen went
Blank for a moment.
dark. There we go. Is that okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Now we're talking, okay, so we're about halfway down the list now. This is a list of medical procedures with dates and a list of surgical history with dates. So as long as you know the year you had something done, that's fine. So if you say, I don't know, I had back surgery, I think it was in 2007, that's good enough. Don't worry about so much about the month and the day. But procedures with at least the year that they took place. A list of your family medical history, if you know it. A lot of people don't. Some of us do, but that can be included as well. And your healthcare proxy form. So healthcare proxy, anybody need to fill out a healthcare proxy? Everybody's got one? Okay. Healthcare proxy, if you don't have a healthcare proxy form, it's very, very simple to fill one out for New York State. It doesn't have to be notarized. You don't have to use a lawyer. And anybody over the age of 18 should have one filled out. So healthcare proxy is where you designate someone of your choosing to speak on your behalf regarding medical decisions if there's ever a time when you can't speak for yourself. Your healthcare proxy does not have to be related to you. It does not have to be your spouse, as long as it's somebody over the age of 18. And so that's really important for you to have a copy for yourself. Also give a copy to the person you've named your healthcare proxy. The MOLST form, MOLST, that stands for Medical Order for Life-Sustaining Treatment. So that's a form where you can choose whether or not you would want CPR, whether or not you would want to be put on a ventilator, whether or not you would want a feeding tube. There's many different questions on there, and you can choose what your wishes are. And this form is something that you would actually fill out with your doctor. Because it is a medical order. So in order for it to be considered an order that healthcare professionals can follow, your doctor actually has to sign it. So that's why you go over it with your doctor. And then the 5 wishes booklet, which Bert, I gave you a bunch. I can provide more if you need it. But the 5 wishes booklet is a little paper booklet that's actually a living will, and it guides you through several questions. And it's really nice because you just take a pen and you just write in the booklet. You can cross things out. You can put your name in there. You can circle things. You can add, if you want to, add your own notes or add your own wishes in there. It's a really nice, simple form that leads you through some living will decisions. And that's available. Bert has that at the Cancer Resource Center. You can also order it online. I think it's $5, but you can get it for free from Bert, from us, if
Yes, you
you'd like.
can.
Okay, so healthcare proxy was what I was just talking about. It is the paper where you choose one or more people to be your representative, and they can make medical decisions on your behalf if there's ever a time when you can't speak on your own behalf. So having a healthcare proxy is good. Having a healthcare proxy who knows what your wishes are is better. So that's where some of this preparation binder comes into play. Your healthcare proxy, so let's see, I said that you should have a copy for yourself, give a copy to the person or people you've named as your healthcare proxy, and then a copy for your doctor as well. And you can change your healthcare proxy if somebody moves away or your life circumstances change and you say, oh, you know what, I actually would like my healthcare proxy to be so-and-so. You just you shred the old form and you fill out a new form, and then you have a new healthcare proxy. And that's fine, you can do that. Okay, the MOST form, this is the extended DNR form, so to speak. This is the one that you would go over with your doctor. The picture that you see here on the screen, it looks like the MOST, there's a little picture of the MOST form on the side there, and it's black and white. But in real life, the MOST form itself is bright, bright pink. I don't know if you've ever seen one, but it's a really bright pink color. And the reason it's bright pink is just so it's easily identifiable in somebody's home. If you have a black and white copy, that's fine as long as it's been signed by a doctor. So the pink color is not what makes it a real order or not. It's the signature from the doctor. We just have them, they come bright pink, so they're easily identifiable. And if you've ever filled out a MOST form, or you know somebody who's filled one out, a lot of times you are directed to place it on your refrigerator, to tape it or use a magnet and put it on your refrigerator or near the refrigerator. And the reason we say that is because EMS, paramedics and firefighters, have all been trained to look for these on or around a person's refrigerator, because a fridge is in most homes. It's kind of a consistent thing in most people's homes. So that's why they're bright pink, and that's why you've been told to put it on the fridge, just so you know. Same thing with the healthcare proxy. With the MOST form, if you fill one out and then 5 years later you say, oh, you know what, now I've changed my mind on some of these. Maybe I said, yes, I do want CPR, but now 10 years later I say, no, I don't. You just fill a new one out. Same thing. It's fine. You can change your mind and fill a new one out, have the doctor sign it, and you're good to go. Okay, so sometimes people, this is still talking about some of the things that are helpful to have in your binder. Sometimes people choose to be an organ or tissue donor. And usually if you are a driver, if you have a driver's license, there will be a little heart on your driver's license. They'll ask you at the DMV, and you can say, yes, I'd like to be an organ and tissue donor. And that will put a little heart on your driver's license that indicates that you've made that choice. But sometimes if you're not a driver, you can also you'll have a different card that they can give you that just identifies you as an organ or tissue donor. So if that's important to you, make sure that your loved ones know that. I can tell you that if somebody is an organ donor, if somebody is eligible to be an organ donor, that will take place in a hospital setting. And from what I've experienced when I used to work in the hospital, what happens is if we have a person who is eligible to be an organ donor and we know that they have chosen that they would want to be an organ donor, we would approach the next of kin and say, your loved one has chosen to be an organ donor. Would you like us to move forward with that process? And your loved ones can say yes on your behalf, but they can also say no, even if you've said that you would like to be an organ donor. I don't think it's the other way around. If you say, no, I don't want to be an organ donor, I don't think that your loved ones can say yes on your behalf. It's only that they can choose to say no. And so I just think that that's interesting for people to know. And in my experience, if a family says, I understand that my loved one said they wanted to be an organ donor, but I just can't do it, please no, then we leave it at that. We don't pressure and we don't badger. Okay. Now also in our area, something that's interesting is we have the option to be what's considered I can't think of the word. I just lost it. Donate your body to science, but there's a much more technical word to it. Anatomical donation. Thank you, whoever just gave that to my brain. So in our area, you can be an anatomical donation because Upstate in Syracuse has a program for people to be an anatomical donation, AKA donate their body to science. If people choose this, they will be given a card that has information on it, and that card, when the person dies, we call the phone number on that card to talk to the person who's coordinating that anatomical donation program. Something that's interesting that people don't know, and it's interesting not in a good way, is that even if, so the anatomical donation program does not cost the person or their next of kin any money. Okay, so their body is used for science purposes or research purposes. And when the program is finished using that person's body, that person is cremated, and then their cremains are returned to the family, and there's no cost for that. But people are surprised to find out that there is a cost for transporting your body to the Upstate Medical Center, to get to Upstate Medical Center. And there is a time limit on that. I think it's 48 hours. And also the body has to be transported in a specialized vehicle that's refrigerated, I believe. And there's a cost to that. And that cost does fall on the family and or the estate of the person. So that's something interesting to know. And not every funeral home in our area has this particular vehicle. So this is where maybe some phone calls come into play. Excuse me. And that's frustrating to find out there is a fee for that, but that's the case currently. Okay, so all of those medical documents, don't worry, it's all on the checklist. So if you feel like you missed anything or you're overwhelmed, take a breath, it's gonna be okay, it'll be on the checklist. So now we're moving into the legal section of the binder, which is, I'll do my best. I'm much better at the medical section, but this is where we talk about some of the important legal documents that would be important to include. So this would be a place where you would have wills and or trusts or copies of wills and trusts, birth certificates, either for yourself or if you're the keeper of your children's birth certificates, which I currently am right now. You know, throughout life, some people keep certificates for other people. Adoption records, either for yourself or if you have anybody in your family that's been adopted. If you have business ownership records, if you've owned a business or currently do, any kind of marriage or divorce records, a copy of a driver's license, employment records. Again, you don't have to have every single one of these. These are just some of the things we've thought about. Military service documents. Does anybody know what a DD-214 is? Okay, so a DD-214 is basically your military birth certificate. This is proving that you were in the military, what branch of service you were in, and when you were in the military. And I have a story about that. So my dad, several years ago, many years ago, my dad died and it was unexpected. And I'm the oldest daughter of the family. So who was in charge of handling things? It was me. And I knew that he had been in the military, and I understood that there was some kind of veterans benefit that would help with his burial. And so I called the VA and I said, okay, this is what happened. And they said, oh, okay, no problem. I'm so sorry for your loss. All you need to do is find his DD-214 and we can start the process. And I was like, I don't know what this R2D2 form is. I have no idea where to find it. But luckily my dad had his things in a file cabinet. Unbeknownst to me, he kind of already had this preparation altogether, just in a file cabinet. And I went through and found that DD-214 form, and that was a huge relief for me. And we were able to move forward with utilizing those veterans benefits. But I think it would have been even better if I had known that that was already there instead of having that stressful time looking for it. So military service documents for sure, especially because there's those veterans benefits that are tied to that. Passport, citizenship, or immigration documents, and social security cards. Now, this is where I had somebody say, well, if I'm making this binder for if I'm really sick or dead, I'm not going to be traveling. I don't need my passport. And I said, that's true. I understand that. But this is where we sometimes call this the grab and go binder. So if you have all these important documents in this one place where you know they're at and you need to grab it and go, maybe there's some flooding in the area, or maybe you need to get out of town quickly. That's where all these important documents would be together for you in that case. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but it's good to be prepared. Okay, now moving on. So that's the legal section. And now we're talking about burial plans and final preparations. So some people have already chosen or have very strong feelings about which funeral home they would like to use, or what kind of memorial or funeral they would like. Some people say, I don't want anything. And some people even further already have purchased their burial plot, or they are currently paying for it. So this is important information to have in your binder, because I can tell you as a hospice nurse that part of our assessment when we're first signing somebody onto hospice, we actually ask them this question. We say, is there a particular funeral home that you want to use? And some people, they know and they tell us, we write it in their chart. And the reason we ask that question is because when somebody dies, one of the first questions that their family is asked is, which funeral home do you want me to call? And so it's helpful if that choice has already been made. I have worked with people when I was called out, their loved one had died, and I said, which funeral home would you like me to use? And they had not made a choice at that time, and they just had to pick one then and there, which is fine. You can do that. But that's just one more extra stressful decision for them to make when they're just grieving their loved one who's just died. So if you have this information, or you have feelings or preferences, put it down in your binder so that your family doesn't have to try to make that decision if and when that time comes. Some people actually have very particular information that they really want to make sure is included in their obituary, or some people even write their own obituary. Some people have they say, I really want you to play this song at my memorial, or read this poem, things like that. So whatever your wishes are, write them down. And then I always say, you can also write down who you want invited to your memorial, and you can also write down if there's anybody who's not invited to your memorial, because sometimes that's the case. So this is your chance to write that down. So sometimes it feels a little morbid for people to think about these things, but I can tell you, if we take away the emotion from it and we're looking at it from a logistical standpoint, it's very helpful when people actually have already made these decisions and written them down for us. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the documents. Again, they're all on the checklist that you're going to receive, the documents that you can include in your binder. And let's say that you've worked, like I said, perpetually, just every week, work on a few things. And let's say you feel pretty good about your binder and that it's completed. Great. Now we recommend picking a date once a year to just quickly review it and make sure that everything that's in there, or all the choices that you've written down, still reflect how you feel, because we change our minds. Maybe you forgave that person and now they are invited to your memorial, so you can erase, you can put them, say that they're invited. Or maybe you've decided to change your healthcare proxy, or change your MOLST form, your DNR form. So picking an annual date to just breeze through it and make sure it reflects your wishes is a good idea. And I think it's a good idea to do it on April 16th, so the day after tax day, because that's usually when we have paperwork on the mind anyway, or usually when we have some form of paperwork in front of us that we're working on. If the day after tax day doesn't work for you, that's fine. But just about once a year, it's a good idea to flip through it. You can also line it up. If you get a yearly physical with your doctor, you could think about it at that time too. Think that maybe that's a good time to revisit your binder. Okay. Some people like to write a letter of intention. So we've talked a lot about this binder and what should go in it. But then who's going to be the point person? Who is the person or people who you're going to let know, I have this binder and here's where you can find it? Because having the binder is great. But do they know where to find it? And do you have a particular person in mind? A lot of people do, who is going to be the keeper of the binder in case you're unable to keep it for yourself. So some people will write a little letter. This is nothing legal. You can write it however you want. That just explains that this binder includes a lot of my important information. I want to make sure that so-and-so is the one who keeps this binder for me, or however you want them to utilize it. It's just supposed to be a little quick, like it says there on the bottom, a roadmap for your loved ones. Usually, if people find something like this and open it, they start to figure out what it is pretty quickly. But sometimes it's nice to have that little letter in the front there. And you can write a little heart and tell them that you'll always remember them, or something for them to hold on to. Okay, so I keep saying binder, 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 and that's just because the binder is what most people choose to use. It seems the simplest way to contain all of these documents and information, but it doesn't have to be a binder. Some people get a really fancy binder. Other people just get like an accordion file. That's perfectly fine too, because then you don't have to worry about hole punching things. You could just slip your information in there. Some people just have a box or like a banker's box. That's fine as long as it's all together. Some people have a bag, and a bag is really handy for the grab and go. So if this is something that you might need to just pick and take with you, or your loved one might need to take it with them, it's handy to have a little bag. File cabinet. So that's what happened with my dad. Luckily, I found that file cabinet and went through it, and he basically had all his information in there. That works too. It's not as portable as other options, but it does the trick. So it doesn't have to be a binder. We just say binder because that's what most people use. Now, this is kind of a cute picture. These pictures here are actually real pictures, and it's photos of one of my colleagues who used to work at Hospicare. Her mom was making a preparation binder, and this is the cute binder her mom picked out. She thought it was so cute with the birds on it and the little flowers on it. And so this is my colleague who works at Hospicare, or previously worked at Hospicare. And when her mom was making this binder, my colleague said, "Oh, Mom, I don't want to talk about that. That's morbid. I don't want to talk about it." Somebody who works at Hospicare, when the tables were turned and it was a personal experience, she lovingly and jokingly admitted that she was not comfortable at first with talking about this preparation binder that her mom was making. But she said that as she noticed that her mom was taking a lot of pride in picking out this cute binder and making sure, her mom was a teacher, can you tell, with she got her little tabs all organized. So my colleague said, I could tell my mom was taking a lot of pride and this was really important to her. And her mom lovingly brought it up a second time, and then they were able to have the conversation. But I just think that that's cute and funny to show that even the people who work at Hospicare, sometimes this can be uncomfortable for them when they're talking or thinking about their loved ones. So if you've had that experience yourself, just know you're not alone. And it was her mom's gentle persistence with it that brought her around to having the conversation. So this is one way to organize. This is a very organized person. That's great. But you can also, like I said, you can throw it all in a bag there, throw it all in a banker box. That also works. Excuse me. Now, there's also some DIY. You can order online. Sometimes they have guided booklets that are similar to the 5 Wishes booklet I was talking about that you just write in the book. There's this one here that I think is so cute. It says, "I'm dead, now what?" ? That you can order. And that will guide you through basically the checklist that I've talked about today. And you just fill it in as you go. I had somebody actually bring one of those to one of my in-person preparation binder in services and showed it. And it was a hit. Everybody was looking at it and talking about it. So that's certainly a way that you can use it.
We have a copy of it at the office. If anybody ever wants to come look at it.
Oh, perfect. There you go. Yeah, it's kind of popular. Like it's among the more popular of these types of booklets that you can purchase. So that's perfectly fine. If you just want to purchase that and have it guide you through making your own binder and filling it in, that's great. Okay, other ways that you can store your documents that are a little bit different is you can, some people who are more computer savvy, they might upload all of their information and store it in a zip drive or like a USB drive or in iCloud storage. Some people will keep their important documents in a fireproof or waterproof box or bag. Some people will utilize a safe deposit box. which works. However, a safe deposit box, if I have a safety deposit box and I die, my family is going to have a long, arduous process to obtain access to my safety deposit box. And that's on purpose. So if I have important medical documents or legal documents in there that they might need, that's actually not the best place for me to have those in the event that I've died. So that's something to keep in mind. Getting into a safety deposit box of a loved one after they've died is a large, long process. So just keep that in mind. You can also keep your items in a file cabinet, or my favorite is the very last bullet point there that says under the bed, just thrown under the bed. Yep, some people do that, and that works too, as long as we know that that's where we need to look for that information. Okay, and this is what the checklist looks like that you'll receive from Bert via email. And you're welcome to, like I said, you're welcome to print that out. You can print out as many copies as you want if you have somebody that you know that maybe wants a checklist as well. And again, don't feel like you need to fill out every single thing and check every box. We just tried to think of every single thing that could possibly go into a binder just to prompt your memory. But you might not have all of these documents. They might not all apply to you, and that's fine. Okay, so I know this is a lot. Again, we're not getting overwhelmed. We're just you're getting all the information up front, and then step by step, week by week, we recommend figuring out how you want to organize your documents. So decide if you think that you want to do a binder or a accordion file or a bag. Start gathering some documents and talking to your loved ones. So sometimes families are happy and open to have these conversations, and that's great and fine. Other times families, like I told you the story about my colleague, it can be a little uncomfortable, and maybe our loved ones push back a little bit and they don't want to talk about these types of things. So we have some little prompts that are helpful. The 5 Wishes booklet, that's the Living Will booklet that is available. Bert has them at the Cancer Resource Center, and that's the one where you can just fill it in. That's a little living will. So it's not necessarily a legal document, but it is a place where you can write down what your wishes are, and then your loved ones can have that in the event that you can't speak for yourself. And the 5 Wishes is nice because it asks you about medical questions, like what kind of treatment you might want or not want, but it doesn't just stop there. It starts taking into consideration some more of your emotions or other things that other wishes you might have regarding how you want people to treat you, how you want people to remember you, things like that. So I like the 5 Wishes booklet. It's more holistic than just a MOLST form, just asking you medical questions. But again, the 5 Wishes is nothing legal. It's just more of a tool and a guide. Whereas the MOLST form, that's a medical order once your doctor has signed it. Okay, so conversation starters. So for those of us who it's a little bit more difficult, or maybe our family's pushing back when we want to talk to them about these things, some of the prompts that we recommend is you can say, there's something on my mind. Is now a good time to bring it up? We also recommend that you can gather the family together to talk about it. However, I don't recommend that you say, I need to talk to you about something, because that's when everybody starts getting anxiety, right? And thinking that there's going to be bad news. We also don't necessarily recommend doing it at a holiday or a special event, although that might work for some people. But we do, sometimes people are all gathered together for a special event or holiday, and we think, oh, now would be a great time to talk about this because they're all together. It's case by case, just take into account your family. The next prompt down says, you can count on me to be there for you. So I want to make things as easy as possible for you if you ever have to make decisions on my behalf or speak on my behalf. I want to do the right things for you when you need them the most. Okay, so again, when our loved ones are ill, if we're the person who needs to make decisions on their behalf, that's already stressful. It's even harder if we're just guessing what decisions we need to make. So that's why we say this binder is actually a gift to your loved ones, because it's giving them your choices and your wishes and your information right there, so that they don't have to try to make those decisions on your behalf. They can make those decisions, but it's better if they if they have it in writing, what you would have liked. You can say, you know what, I realized I don't know what your wishes are if I never ever needed to speak on your behalf. What are yours? Okay, here are mine. So you can kind of open the conversation up that way by asking them what their wishes are or providing them with the 5 wishes booklet and offering to work on them together. You matter to me and I care about you, and I want you to be able to be present as my loved one if I'm ever sick or dying, instead of running around trying to find a DD 214 military form or whatever it is. So these are just different prompts you can use to open up the conversation. And then my favorite one is you can just say, oh, you know what? I just went to this workshop. Just use this as an excuse and say, oh, I went to this workshop and you know, I didn't think about this or this. And then you can open up the conversation that way. I've also told people just take the little 5 wishes booklet and throw it on the counter and just leave it there and wait for somebody to notice it. And then you can start the conversation that way. So it's just based on whatever's comfortable for your family and what your family dynamics are. But just know, like the story with my colleague, that sometimes at first there's pushback and you might have to circle back around and lovingly bring it up again. Okay, so I mentioned earlier before that this shouldn't feel like a big arduous task or a huge stressful chore, and that we recommend doing 3 things each week toward your binder. And so these are just some examples. So one would be find your passport if you have one, find a binder or a file folder, and talk to a loved one. So those could be your 3 things, that you find something to put in it, find something to keep all of your documents, find one thing to put in it, and then let your loved one know, oh, I'm working on this, and this is where you can find it, under my bed or on top of the fridge or wherever. I'm sorry, I'm getting dry. I'm sorry, I keep coughing. Okay, so that is the end of the PowerPoint slides for making this preparation binder. Again, Bert has the checklist that can be provided to you electronically. It can also be found on our Hospicare website. And Bert at the Cancer Resource Center also has those 5 wishes booklets that you're welcome to take, or take a couple copies. We buy them, you know, by the 500 lot. So take a couple copies of that if you need it. And then set your 3 goals for this week, and then revisit it the day after tax day. How's that sound? Good enough? Okay, you guys got some thumbs up. I like that.
And to remind everyone, I did send a link to that document in the chat, but you can also, you know, email me or call the Cancer Resource Center and request it. I will be out for the next 2 weeks, and my colleague probably won't know what it is, but you can leave a message for me.
Mm-hmm.
Or email
or you
me.
can contact us at Hospicare as well, or on the Hospicare website. We'll be happy to get that to you. Either way.
If you do email me, you can the office or call. You know, I will get the message and get back to you. And yes, Annalisa, I want you to know that this is being recorded, and so if you don't want this question recorded, I'm happy to pause it. That's just a general
No,
question.
I know it's being recorded. Kimmy, this is a question for you. I've lived in many places and I have had healthcare in many places, and many of those places are no longer in practice. There's no way I can guess what year I had such and such. Just do the best you can. Is that
Just do the best you can. Yeah, a lot of times. So a lot of times if you just have a vague idea, like I think I had that, it was either 2000 or 2001 or 2002. That's fine. I mean, yeah. We're just happy that you even know you had a surgery or had a procedure in the first place. So it's just as much information as you have available. But if you don't have all the information, that's okay. That's not going to be make or break. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a good question.
Great. Thank you, both of
Yeah,
you.
good. I'm glad. I'm glad. What else? I know it's kind of a lot to take in, but just mull it over for the next amount of time. It looks like looks like somebody has their hand up, but you're
No,
muted. Yeah.
Asked you to unmute. There you go.
Okay. We're in Seneca County. Where do we go from here? Well, you're Tompkins County, correct?
Correct. So Seneca County will have its own Seneca County does have hospice services. I can't think off the top of my head which hospice agency it is that provides those services, but you're still welcome to the MOLST form, the 5 Wishes booklet. Those are, so the MOLST form is New York state wide. The 5 Wishes booklet is used across the country. So that's perfectly fine. And then our little checklist, even though it might say our logo on it, you're still welcome to use that and use it to put your documents together.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question.
Kimmy, I really appreciated you saying to do it in bits and pieces, because I have looked at it or sent it to someone, and the response, the first thought is, oh my, like, how am I going to do
Yeah.
this? It's like, well, you're not in a hurry, right? So just do it bit by bit, chip away at it, and before you know it, you'll have a nice big file.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, because I know the reason I say who's type A, who's already getting overwhelmed, is because I'm that way. And it can look very daunting when you're looking at this whole checklist. But yep, just little by little. And then of course, I'm biased because I work in the medical field, but I feel like the really important things to at least get in there at first is your healthcare proxy, your MOLST form or your 5 Wishes. What was the other one that I thought about? Oh, and then if you have burial plans, if you have a funeral home you want to use. So those are like the 3 I'd start with. But yeah, just little by little. And you can keep adding to it and change it.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Nita. I'll wait.
Are you okay with me sharing this link? A couple weeks ago at my church, we had a service on end of life. And when I said I was coming to this, people said, share information with me. So are you okay with me sharing that?
Absolutely. Is your church in Tompkins County or Cortland County?
Tompkins, yeah.
Why don't you can share it, but I'd be happy to come and do the presentation as well. Like this is
Okay,
what I
thank
do
you
this
for the
all
offer.
over.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but whatever is easiest for you, but certainly you can share the link. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Would anybody on the call happen to know how you handle it if you want to go to Green Springs or something like that? Do you still have to have a funeral director if you just want to get buried in the woods?
I think so.
Great question. So, as far as I know, at least a few years ago, I don't know if it's changed. I doubt it has. For people who wanted to have a natural burial at Green Springs, you still have to have a handoff of your corpse that goes through a funeral home. It has to go through. So it would still be that, one of the funeral homes in the area would be who collected your body and transported it to Green Springs and then had the handoff to the Green Springs staff. So there's still that.
My husband can't just throw me in the back of the truck.
No, depends on who catches you. Okay, who catches it? Right, and I understand because it is frustrating to wish that we could do it that way. But as far as I know, that's the rule technically, is that there still needs to be that handoff through a funeral, because the funeral home is who, or excuse me, yes, the funeral home is who does the death certificate. So that's where they need to be involved for that as well.
And Lisa, your question made sense to me. And as Kimmy's answering it, I'm like, oh, right. They want to make sure at least that we dispose of the body properly.
Yeah, and to make sure it's like documented. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
and then
that
the death
body, not a different one.
Oh, dear.
Good questions. What else? Great. Well, if anybody thinks of questions afterwards, which usually happens, you can certainly reach out to Bert. And if Bert can't answer it for you, he knows where to find me and I'll find the answer for you.
Absolutely.
But otherwise, Bert has the checklist and the 5 Wishes document. And now you've got all the information. But don't get overwhelmed, just little by little and putting it together.
Thank you.
Great. Kimmy, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us. Great to see you. Have a good evening.
You
Thank you.
too.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Good luck.